Before I get started with our esteemed guest, I am Donna Whyte, and I'm a Moreland resident. And I think that many of you know that I work at Cleveland State University. But just to let you know a little bit about Witness to History. As we continue to find ways to remain safe and healthy during COVID-19, Witness to History is a virtual presentation that we know you will enjoy. As most of us in the Moreland community of Shaker Heights know Kevin and Lee Kay and their wonderful work in building networks and relationships across our neighborhood, Kevin asked if I'd host Witness to History so that we can learn more about our neighbors so that they can tell their own stories to us. The way we'll proceed, and John had mentioned this, is that I'll have kind of an Oprah show with Mrs. Hooper starting off, and we'll have a conversation, and we'll all learn more about Earline Hooper from her own words in her own life. And then I'll turn it over to our audience, and if you have questions, and many of you, I can tell from so many people here, have had so many different ways of knowing Earline Hooper. I'd just like to say, everyone's life story is worth telling. And today, Mrs. Earline Hooper, one of our most treasured Moreland residents and Shaker Heights community leaders, is our guest, our first guest. Hello, Mrs. Hooper. I would just like to start off by sharing with everyone how I know Earline Hooper. Several years ago, I was aware that our Moreland Community Association had an education committee, and Mrs. Hooper was the co-chair of the education committee of the Moreland Community Association. Many of the activities that occurred had to do with working with the students in Shaker schools. I'm going to turn this over just quickly, Mrs. Hooper, if you could tell me a little bit about that education committee and some of the work that you did during that time quickly, and then we're going to go a little bit further in your life and know a little bit more about your life and your experiences.
Thank you, Donna. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to the Moreland community for giving me this privilege. And it's been such a joy working with Donna. One of our major speakers for the education committee was Donna. She never turned us down. Every time we asked her, she'd say yes. It's really been a pleasure because what we've been doing is trying to keep, it was not as necessary then as it is now, but it is. So what our goal was to try to keep the parents abreast of what was happening with the children. And sometimes we were calling on the telephone and going to visit homes. And I must pause for just a moment and say that we didn't do this alone. You know that my dear friend, Lola Dudley, who worked with us,
Absolutely.
went on to be with God last year, and she was really a jewel. And we couldn't have done it without Lola and Donna and so many other people. That Mary Lynn is here too. Hi, Mary Lynn.
She's muted now, but she'll come in a little bit.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, our major goal was to keep the families abreast of what was going on in the schools and to make sure that they were aware of the fact that they were welcome anytime they wanted to, well, of course, making reservations with the teachers in the schools. But it's so important that the parents and the schools and the teachers have a good rapport. And I hope that is continuing. So that's how I got into it in the first place, because I had just retired and I thought I was going into retirement. And by that time, I had said yes, because I don't know how to say no, but eventually I will.
Yes, and so many ways you did not know how to say no, and that was such a benefit. I know to all the families that you worked with during that time and beyond. Of course, these are young adults at this particular time, and I'm sure that they have done well in their lives and appreciate the opportunity to have worked with the education committee. So that's just a little story about your life. Let's go back a little bit earlier than that. And just tell us who Earline Hooper is. How did you happen to come to Cleveland? I understand that you were not born in Cleveland, but your family moved here. Tell us a bit about your history.
I'm happy to say that I was born in Birmingham, Alabama. And I went to grade school there and started high school. The reason why I'm in Cleveland and Shaker Heights, my grandfather, my other members of my family were equally interested, but my grandfather, Will Cogman, may he rest in peace, was really concerned about the fact that we were not getting adequate education. The libraries weren't open and the schools weren't integrated, and there was just a lack of, he did some traveling and he had a chance to make comparisons. And so he called us his chaps, and he said that his chaps were going to do better. And as a result, he had retired from the mines in Birmingham, and he chose to come to Cleveland because one of his daughters, my aunt, Aura, had been here before, and she had a job, and Papa came, as we call Papa, and he came and he thought this is the ideal place. So he worked for a while, and they bought a house in the Glenville area and sent for my sister and my brother and myself, and we came to Cleveland in 1946. And that same year, 1946, we were out of school early because the schools in Cleveland were still in session, and we had been out the early part of the year. Anyway, we came and we enrolled in Glenville that fall of 1946. And it was kind of rough for me at first because my educational background was not equal to the other students. And I realized that right away, but my grandfather, not only did he encourage us to come, but he encouraged us to excel and think in terms that no one is going to be better than you are. And I'm going to see to that. And the other family cooperated with him as much as possible. Anyway, after a period of time, my homeroom teacher, Mr. Thomas, I will never forget him. As I was about to leave the classroom one morning, he said, "Earline Jenkins," that was my maiden name, "take your seat. I want to talk to you." And I thought, what have I done now? And he walked over to my desk and he said, "Don't look so worried," he said, "because you haven't done anything wrong." He said, "What you're doing is right." He said, "But you're worrying too much." He said, "I am very pleased with your progress, and I want you to be pleased with your progress as well." He said, it's going to take a little while longer, but keep working. And so as a result of Mr. Thomas's encouragement, and I must go back just for a little while because my grade school teacher in Birmingham was Mrs. Annie Mae Owens. And it was sort of like a one-room school. And she was not only the teacher, but she was the principal of the school. And she did the same kind of encouragement. In fact, we lived quite a distance from the school, and my brother and sister had gone on to another school, and she decided I wasn't far enough from the school in order to get transportation. And she said, "Well, how are you going to get there? I'm going to come and get you."
Oh my goodness.
So she picked me up, and for the remainder of the time that I was in that school, I was able to ride with the principal and the teacher. And there were some other teachers. Actually, there were about 4 of us in that car. But anyway, they treated me as though I was their own. And that was a lot of encouragement.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And so you came, oh, go right ahead.
So I went to, I enrolled in Glenville in 1946. And I graduated from Glenville in 1948, I guess it was. Anyway, it was 1948 because I didn't have quite enough money to go to college. So not that I could get that much just working during the summer, but my family was very encouraging. And they chose to help me. I only went to work for 1 year, one summer, in fact. And no, I beg your pardon. It was a whole year. And then that following September, I was accepted at Ohio State. And that's where I enrolled and continued there until I graduated in elementary education. And when I graduated, they were on the quarter system, and so I graduated in March. Came home, and I had become engaged after my second year in college, and I wanted to get married that June. That was in 1953, and what happened was that I went to the Board of Education to apply for a job, and they told me that they didn't have any openings, and that was in March, and Cleveland was on the spring break. And as a result of that, I was a little discouraged because I needed the extra money for my big wedding. I was hoping that I was going to have a big wedding. Anyway, the very next week they called me back and said that an opportunity was open for me, that I would be able to start working at Longwood School. And that was on 35th and Quincy, in that area. Anyway, I started working in Longwood in March of 1953, and I got married and that's June 27th, yes.
Okay.
And so, pardon me? Not first grade.
No.
Oh, no, not first grade. No. I had second grade at Longwood. To make a long story a little bit shorter, I taught at Longwood, and I went back there after Sam was born. And then after, I taught another year, so almost 2 years, and Paula was born. And I went to Mayor B. Martin, which was on 67th, I believe, in Brookline. And that school was named after Mayor B. Martin, who was the first Black woman to be on the board.
Yes, and in the country, she was one of the first.
Yes.
Black.
And that was a brand new school, Mayor B. Martin.
Yes.
And Mayor B. Martin, when Emily was born, was on the way rather, I was transferred to, which one?
Oh, wow, wonderful.
What was the school at? Doane, yes, Doane, in 105th and Superior. And I was asked to go to the West Side after that because the integration had begun.
Yes. Wonderful pictures. Wonderful. I remember these Cleveland Public School pictures here.
Oh, thank you.
Wonderful pictures. How pleasant. Yes. Well, now how did you told me the other day how you met your husband. Would you tell that little story real quick?
That summer when I was, that year that I was trying to get enough money to go back to school, I went to, a lot of the adults were going to John Hay High School, night school. And I chose to go to John Hay night school because at Glenville, I didn't do well in chemistry. And I thought I would take another course in chemistry. And my husband happened to be in that class, and he was the smartest one in there. And he was helping me, and that's how we became good friends. And eventually,
I love that. I love that story. That's wonderful.
Yes, he said that he was responsible for my getting in college and all these things, but that wasn't true. He was just he was just happy that I got a chance to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had shared with you that Ohio State is my alma mater as well. So I was very pleased to hear that we're both Buckeyes. We're Buckeyes.
Yes.
Well, it's obvious, why you have a heart and a life for young people and for education. And I can only imagine how your students in the schools that you taught in and in the classrooms you were in, remember you always. We always remember those teachers that have had the greatest impact on our lives. And I can imagine that many of them have you at the top of their list. I can only imagine. How many years did you teach?
I taught really for 33 years.
Okay.
But with 37 with the times that I was off. I must say, pause just for a short minute here to tell you that I never would have been able to teach that length of time if it had not been for my mother. May she rest in peace. She kept the children, except for Paula. Paula chose not, they went to nursery school. Sam went to nursery school. Then when Emily came, she went to nursery school. Paula went to nursery school and went home and told her Nana that she didn't like it. She didn't want to go. Of course, my husband and I could have done something about that, but her grandmother had her so spoiled, and they had got along so well. We just chose to let her stay at home.
Oh.
And her grandmother gave her some lessons there. So she boasts about the fact that she did not need nursery school.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I know that before we turn our sights on Shaker Heights and Moreland a little bit more, I know that you're very involved in your church. You're very involved in your church, and in your church, you're also involved with youth programs. Would you tell us a bit about that?
Well, yes, one of the very special assignments was the young people of the Missionaries have what they call a young people's department. And I was asked to be the chairperson for that. And I was there for about 12 years. And that meant inviting other churches and other young people to come to our church, as well as our going. The only part that I didn't particularly like was there was a lot of traveling involved. The farthest I ever went was to Atlanta. And I went there with Reverend and Mrs. Bean at the time. They were, he was our pastor, and they made it possible because at that time they didn't have adequate funds to send a lot of people. So I went, and I only had a chance to take one delegate along with me, one of the youngsters. And that was pretty exciting. But we did a lot of wonderful things right there at St. James AME Church.
Yes. I have visited your church, and there may be some of your church members online with us this evening.
Yes, there are some. Carolyn Cooper and the Benjamins and Gloria. Who else?
That's wonderful.
Yes. Melody, yes, Melody. Okay.
I know Melody. Now let's, when did you move to Shaker Heights? And let's talk about some of the things that you've done in Shaker. And
well, the reason why it was pretty much the same reason that we left Birmingham. I was teaching at Doan, teaching at Doan, I think at the time. Anyway, I was expecting Paul at the time. Sam was the only one that Sam was going to, what's the school right there? No, before Rosedale, which was right down the street from where we lived on 115th Street. And so Daddy and I had gone to see my doctor, and we just decided that since I was off that day, I was still teaching, we would go down to Rosedale School and visit. So we went down to the school, and we had not made reservations before. And we didn't have an appointment, but we thought it would be all right. However, the principal decided that we wouldn't be able to see the classroom, and Daddy just kind of went berserk. Linda knows, and other people know. Daddy would get really upset about any interruptions with his children. So he said he and the principal didn't really have an argument, but he just told her that if she didn't allow us to go to see Sam in his classroom, he was going to call the president. Anyway, she kind of believed him. And after she conferred with some people in the office, she was bopping down the hall and saying, "Please, Mr. Hooper, go into your son's room." But after that, Daddy was a little upset because he thought, we've got to move. We weren't too pleased with what we saw in the classroom that day. and other things that happened. So as a result, that's when we got started making preparations to come to Shaker, because we had heard about the good schools here. And in a short period of time, we moved into this house where we are right now. And Paula was and Sam moved here. Sam was in 2nd grade. Paula was walking around with her bottle, and Emily had not come. Emily was born after we came here. That's our family. There they are.
Oh, beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's
Beautiful.
Now, tell us a bit about some of the things that you had done. You mentioned to me that you were involved with youth programs here, Girl Scouts, and a few of the activities that you were involved in once you moved into Shaker Heights. Could you tell us about the Girl Scout?
Yes, my daddy was with the Boy Scouts, and I was with the Girl Scouts. And when we started the busing program, I had a Girl Scout committee at Moreland. And when the girls were transferred, Sam was already going to Woodbury, and Emily and Paula went to Malvern. Thank you. And the principal was very kind, and I told her about the girl. They didn't have a Girl Scout troop there, and she said I would be very welcome to start one there. And it was just wonderful cooperation. We met on the stage, and parents came and cooperated beautifully. So for a period of time, Paula stayed in Girl Scouts the longest. She was the only one in her group that went all the way with Girl Scouts. Emily thought about other things. She wanted to do some things that did not include Girl Scouts. She wanted to be an actress. Even at that time of her life, she wanted to do things that were very creative, although there were, anyone who's associated with the scouting program knows that that's a creative program as well. Oh, yeah. Anyway, we went along with that, and we really were not sorry. That was the YPD through Missionaries and the Girl Scouts, and let's see what else. Well, I work with the Missionaries as well, and the student aid. Gloria's with us today. We're still working with the student aid, and that's a program where you give aid to the young people, and really some of them go on to do. In fact, the majority. Our group is small now because it's some of the young people don't take as interest in that kind of thing as they did when they were younger, but we still have a few young people who qualify to get a scholarship. And many of our members of St. James, we don't have great givers now because the people don't have the kind of money that they used to have, but they used to really give huge.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to stop here, and I want you to introduce your children who are here with you today. I know your daughter, one of your daughters is not here, but I know that, make some introductions for us here.
Well, to my right here, I have Paula. And
Paula
is, she actually came to give Sam a helping hand because, as everybody knows, Sam works so hard. And Paula is still working during the summer, but she had told me, she came when I had the surgery in February, and then she came back again when I came out of the hospital. And she said, I'm going to come back for a week. And this just happened to be the week. But she was supposed to leave this morning, and I said, why don't you stay for this evening? So you want to tell them about what you do?
Yes, well, I'm following in my mother's footsteps. I'm an educator, and one of my biggest claims to fame and biggest just heartfelt pieces of work that I've done was teaching in Shaker. I taught at Fernway for several years, and that got me started on the road that I'm on now, which is I am currently an assistant professor of instruction in the School of Education and Social Policy at Northwestern University.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for staying around for this. Yes, and who else do you have with you?
And Mr. Sam?
Hello.
Hi there, Sam.
Hello. How's everybody? Sam Hooper. I'm a guitar player, singer, songwriter. Play all over town. I also do a lot of teaching with the Roots of American Music, and also performing with some of the senior programs they have with that. We are very involved with a Stop the Hate program involving the Maltz Museum for Jewish Heritage and the Cleveland Public Schools. And we write songs with the kids and have them perform at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame every year. And your daughter, Mariama, was one of the judges on that last year.
Yes.
So it's a very cool program. So I keep pretty busy, and she keeps me pretty busy.
Oh, yeah.
Also plays for church.
And I play for St. James A.M.E. Church every Sunday, like today. Yes.
Okay, good. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I understand, and you're one of the most modest people that I know. But we know that you have been recognized by many organizations and many people. And so, so you may be going about in your life just doing what it is that you're called to do. And we know that most of that is about youth. But as we know of your family as well, you know, you had to be just a wonderful mother because you have wonderful children doing wonderful. Continue to offer that to the world. But talk a little bit about some of the awards that you've received, and that'll give us a little bit of an idea about just how hard you've worked and how much recognition you've gained. So what is this?
Oh,
Dr. Martin Luther King?
That's a Dr. Martin Luther King Award, and Pat Mearns, who was our ex-mayor, and she's gone on to be with the Lord. Both of us received that award for the work that we do, that we have done in Shaker Heights, in the community, as well as our own job that we had. She was a mayor, and you know what that kind of job really entails, an awful lot of work. And in the meantime, I was doing a lot of volunteer work while I was still teaching. But it didn't seem like that, because as long as I have an opportunity to work with young people and to work in Shaker, frankly speaking, it's been good. And with people like Mary Lynn McGovern and Al Foster, who doesn't even live here anymore. Al, why are you back all the time?
Good question.
He has love for us. And the mentoring program, I work with Mary Lynn with the mentoring program through the Shaker High School. We work with the older kids with the mentoring program, and with the Ohio Reads program that was in the Mercer School. I was there for about 5 years. That's mostly with the younger.
Now, didn't you get a recognition for that program?
Yes, I did. I got.
Yes, you did, from the governor, Governor
Yeah.
Taft at that time, and also a Jennings Award. See, you're so modest. You shared. These are just a few of the awards that you have received for recognition for all of the work that you've done for the youth far and wide within our community and beyond. And I want to bring our audience in, because so many of you here, I'm sure, know Earline Hooper in so many different ways that I would like to invite, those of you who have joined us, if you have questions or comments that you'd like to share. I have to let you know that that when I met Earline Hooper and I would be invited to come to the education committee meetings, you know how you know somebody's really special. And so I didn't know about the career that you had as a teacher. I did respect certainly how it was that you took care of business. That was what I felt when I came. The sincerity and the seriousness of the mentoring program that you and many other residents in Moreland initiated, and had a wonderful relationship with the schools and went into the schools and met with the students. And so that is something that that's very memorable for me. I knew you were really special. I can imagine how it must have been to be in your classroom. It had to have been absolutely wonderful, and just wonderful all these years that we've known each other. So you our guests here, you can feel free to post questions in the chat. And if anybody wants to, I don't know what I should do here. If I want to recognize if anybody would like to ask a question or share a comment, we can unmute you for that.
Donna, would you recognize Mary Lynn, because she helped an awful lot, just like
Yes, absolutely.
in the mentoring program as well as the educational.
Yes, Mary Lynn, I know you're online here. You want to chime in for us and let us know, you know, where you are and what you did with the Shaker schools, because, you know, many of us know you. Mary Lynn?
If
Mary
you're
Lynn
on the
McGovern?
phone,
Is she
on the
muted?
phone, you can hit *6 to unmute yourself. And we also do have a question coming in from Brian.
Yes, yes, I see that.
Brian.
Do you want to read Brian's
Okay,
question?
while we're waiting for Mary Lynn, we have a question here. How do you feel about Shaker Heights today? This question is from Brian
Shaker Heights.
Wamsley.
That's what he wants to know. How do you feel about living in Shaker Heights today?
I feel good about what Shaker Heights has done for our students. I would not give them 100%, but I feel like we chose to move to Shaker at the right time and at the right place. And I just don't think that anywhere you move or anywhere you have children and you want to educate them, you just have to kind of make sure that you're there for them yourselves. And I mean, the schools are important, but parents certainly have a major role. And I say that without regretting the fact that my husband and I were there every time the doors open. If we weren't both there, one of us was there. So I just feel like Shaker Heights gets a little bit of criticism sometimes, but I feel that they were rewarding for us.
Very good. And we have a question here. John Addison, do you have a question?
Where's John?
You can't see me, but I can hear you.
Okay, do you have a question?
Thank you.
I don't have a question. I'm just very happy to be a part of what's going on here, because Earline is definitely a deserving person. I had the fortune to be in a lot of the Moreland meetings when they were having meetings, and my wife Pam, both of us observed her along with the team of people that she worked with be strong advocates for good education for our children, and that was a pleasure for me.
Yeah, yeah.
It was not only a pleasure, it was inspirational, and gave me hope when I had a struggle too.
Yes.
Thank you, John. It takes one to know one. You're still at it, aren't you? We're so proud of you too.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. We have a question here from Sheila. How do you feel the educational system today is compared to when you were involved in the system?
Well, I think that I know computers and the improvement of materials that you're using, because I get a little jealous with even my grandchildren now. They know a lot about some of the equipment and so forth that I'm not very comfortable with. However, sometimes I think it kind of slows them down. It makes them a little lazy too sometimes. I feel like there's nothing like reading and teaching children to be able to read and how to read, and homework, doing, not using the computer for everything. I like the computer, I think it's great, but I just feel like this one-on-one is extremely important. My daughter, I don't know whether she agrees with me or not, because
Yes, can I say something?
Sure. Oh,
Yes,
absolutely.
you absolutely agree. We're laughing because most of my job right now has to do with looking at technology and learning. But I
Yes.
started with when computers first came out, and we had these big Apple IIe's that we could bring into a house, but couldn't carry around very much. My mom called a bunch of her friends who were teachers and said, "Come on over," and she had me set it up for them in the basement and show them what they could do with technology. And so I feel like that piece of bringing people together, whether it's with technology or a book or whatever, is what my mom is really saying very eloquently, is that we have to hold on to. Because I think a lot of times people will talk about the wonders of using technology, but not really respect how important the way you teach is and the way you connect to people through teaching. And that is, I think, what my mom's life as a teacher embodied. And that's what I try to help people understand when they're working with technology.
Wonderful. Yes, yes. It's a blessing now that we have this technology, so that we've been able to go through a time we never even imagined. It's just unfortunate that everybody doesn't have access to it, like, so many of us do. And I have a question here from did I ask that from Brian? What do you think the next steps are that Shaker could take right now? And this is from Brian again.
Well, I think steps that will improve the relationships with the teachers and parents. Sometimes I get the impression that some parents don't feel comfortable. I've had that feeling even when I was teaching, that some parents didn't feel comfortable having a good rapport with the teacher. And I think that it's so important to work together. And if there's a problem that comes up, go directly to the schools and find out what the problems really are, because don't let anyone give you that information secondhandly. Find out for yourselves. And many times their parents play a major role. And of course, teachers do all as well, but the teachers can't do it all.
Yes.
Really, the children are supposed to be with their parents, more than they are in the classroom.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. And here's a question from Monica. Thank you for sharing your history. This is from Monica, and she says, what would you suggest, or what words of wisdom would you share with young Black Lives Matter protesters?
Well, I feel like Black lives do matter. And I also feel like that all lives matter. I think that it's important that they understand why sometimes the protesters are just into this without realizing what it's all about. It's a group of people are getting excited and stop and find out what are they protesting for, because there's good in that activity, and there are negative things that could come as a result of it. I just don't like some of the results of behavior that comes up sometimes. And recently they actually showed instances where there was calm, peaceful protesting, and that's more effective as far as I'm concerned. But if you're going to lose your temper and do negative things, what are the accomplishments there? I just don't quite understand that at all. As you know, I'm 16 years old. Sorry to tell you, but anyway. But you're never too old to learn, and I feel like these young people sometimes they're saying that they need someone to listen to them. And that's very often the case. And I feel like, as far as the Black protesters, now the last time that I saw this going on effectively was you weren't looking around saying that's one Black person, there's one white. They were all mingled together. It was like, we're all trying to solve these problems. And no one can do it all by themselves. It takes more.
Yes,
There's a few people, and I feel like you can solve more when it's peaceful.
yes, yes, yes. Thank you for that. Here's a question from my daughter, Mariana. At what point in your life did you know you wanted to go into education? And the second part of that was becoming a teacher always what you envisioned?
Well, those two questions are, when I was a little girl in Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
and Mrs. Anna Mae Owens took me to school, she asked me, Earline, what would you like to do when you grow up? I said, I want to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I sincerely wanted to be a teacher. And when I left Oxmoor School in Oxmoor, Alabama, Mrs. Owens said to me, Earline, you're going to be a teacher. You want to be a teacher, and you have proven that that's what you really want to do. And that's what I've always wanted to do, be a teacher.
Wonderful. Was it all that you envisioned that it would be?
And more.
Oh, nice. That's nice. I'm sure your students felt that too.
Well, you know, it's interesting that very often, you know, you see students, they're looking at you as one person, and then you're supposed to remember them. You had so many students through the years, and many of them I'm not very honest a little bit, because I do remember the name. I don't remember the names, but many times I do remember the faces.
Yes, yes. I can imagine students probably still, if they happen to see you out and about, they say, Mrs. Hooper, you were my second grade teacher.
Very often that happens, and it makes me feel good. I'm pleased to get that.
I can imagine. And here's a question from Anne. Could you talk about the late 1960s and efforts to keep Moreland open for a two-way voluntary desegregation plan?
Well, this was the time that they started the desegregation.
When did you yes.
Yes, and my husband and I really worked diligently
Mm-hmm.
that program. One of the objections that I had to it, though, was what happened at Moreland. I wasn't too pleased about the fact that Moreland eventually was closed. I felt like we needed an elementary school in our neighborhood as well. My girls were bused to Mercer, Melbourne rather, excuse me, and Sam was going to Woodbury. I don't know. I was really involved with the busing program when I was teaching, because our kids were bused from the neighborhood where I was teaching to another neighborhood on the west side. I didn't quite see what that accomplished, and I still don't, because I would observe very frequently that buses were going to the west side full of just Black kids, and the white kids at first were coming, but that dwindled.
Right.
You know, it just wasn't as effective as I thought it would be. I feel like, as I was looking at some of my reading material recently, and one of the young girls was saying something about at the high school, Shaker High School, all the Black kids sit with the Black kids and all the white kids sit with the white kids, you know. I just don't, I know from experience that kids can get along well. Sometimes it's a matter of the adults kind of staying out of it and trying to influence them to think the way they think. But if you leave them alone, they just kind of mingle together. Now, I never had that problem we never had that problem with our kids. Now, Sam, I don't think, paid too much attention to what was going on, because many times things were happening at the high school, and he'd come home and Daddy and I would ask him about it. He said, I don't know anything about it. And he was right, because he was minding his own business. But some children do need more of that intermingling with other children. They want to learn, but you just have to kind of give them a little more encouragement, and that's important.
Emily started SCORE.
Yeah, Emily was one of the members of her class that started the SCORE program.
Oh, okay, wonderful. And tell us if anybody happens not to know what SCORE is. Student,
SCORE is a student group on race relations.
yes.
And I
Yeah.
think a little bit has gotten lost in the history that it was actually started by my sister and Lakshmi's sister, and maybe there might be some other
She's
people
right there.
on the call whose family was involved. It was a group of white and Black students when they were at Byron who decided to start a program to encourage students to get to know each other before they went into junior high school and high school in order to support that kind of mingling that my mom was talking about, to create situations where students were supported in that mingling. And SCORE has grown into a really big program within Shaker schools, but those roots among a group of friends who saw a need, I think is really one of the great things that can come out of Shaker, but also one of the things that you have to work to hold on to what it's really about. That idea that SCORE was really about trying to encourage students of all races to really have a meaningful way to interact with each other.
And one thing about Shaker also is it's important to know that whenever SCORE began, SCORE is still around. SCORE is still around. Very often we see efforts that are really good, a good idea, and if those individuals who initiated different activities are gone, suddenly it's gone, but SCORE is still around. Max Scholars is still around. There are efforts that Shaker has adopted and commits to continuing, because we know that it really supports the students in the system. I have another comment here from Brian. It says, Earline, your daughter Paula was my second grade teacher at Fernway. I am a teacher and she is one of my role models. I want to thank you for being such a positive role model for your daughter and for me. That's from Brian.
Oh, aren't you kind, Brian? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brian. I love you.
That's so nice. That's so nice. Does anybody?
I believe is teaching at Hathaway Brown.
I'm Hawkins.
Hawkins.
Oh,
Brian,
wow.
teaching at Hawkins now.
Wow. And so people are inspired to pursue their careers because of the role models that have influenced them. Now, I don't see any other comments. Does anybody else want to ask any questions or make any comments at this particular time? We still have so many people on board with us.
While they're thinking about that, may I just I just want to give a special thank you to the whole committee for having asked me to be a part of this program. I know that there are so many more that are more deserving than I am, but we'll bring you in too. I'll say because I'll help you to do that. But I want to start with Donna. As I said before, not to continue this, but she is truly an ideal and beautiful person, and she's so given, and she's she just loves to help other people, and she does that. I was listening to her talking about. I said to her, "I thought you were retiring." She goes in to tell me all the work that she's done. I said, "That does not sound like anyone in retirement at all."
Well, kind of. I retired from one job, and life goes on. I haven't figured out yet how not to work. I have a couple more comments here from Catherine Bennett. My daughter is in SCORE now. She knew she wanted to participate when SCORE students visited her elementary classrooms. It's an important part of her life. I love the connection I have now to start. I love the connection I have now to the start of SCORE. Okay, the origins of it. Thank you. And I have another comment here from Denise Daniels. I had the pleasure of working for a time with Earline's son, Sam, and it's been a pleasure listening to Earline talk about her life. I've learned so much more about you.
Thank you very
everyone
much.
has. Yes. And would you like to share something else perhaps that I didn't remember to ask you for people to know? I know you're very modest, but there's so much, even though you've gotten awards, so people do recognize the work that you've done. And when I think about our Moreland community, and even this initiative, Witness to History, I could talk about that in conversations that Kevin Kay and I have had. And so as we thought about who the Moreland resident would be, who would be our ideal first person to be our guest on Witness to History, it wasn't hard for me at all to bring up your name. And so it's been really such a pleasure. And is there anything else you want to add, Mrs. Hooper?
Well, I just want to leave you with my scripture, my favorite scripture. Philippians 4, 4th chapter, 13th verse. I can do anything through Christ who strengthens me. And that's how I keep going, because sometimes it gets rough and I think about what I can do and what I've tried to do. And I do get that strength from God who helps me. I have to tell you that. And I wanted to thank some other people here who have been, Michael Griffiths was the principal at the time when I left the mentoring program, and he was extremely helpful. He gave us good suggestions, and he assisted us in many ways. He even brought his, many times at Fred Levinson's home, we used to have, we had parties, and at Christmas time, she always opened up her home and he would bring his kids. They were so talented. We just had a good time. I'm thinking about John and Pam Addison.
Yeah.
John, are you still there? He's gone.
I'm still here. I'm still here. We're still here.
Thank you. Thank you for all the support that you continuously give to my family and to me. I want to thank Al Foster. Al Foster is here for everybody. He lives, I won't say where you live now, Al, but you live in Shaker. You still live here. We can always call on you, and thank you so much. Bernie Stokes, who was the director of elementary education, and John Paces, who was the director of curriculum at the time. These people were just fantastic. And I wanted to say thank you to all of the Moreland, the group that's working here now, that have made it possible for us to have these meetings. Mm-hmm. They work so hard. Give me some of the names. Kevin Lee, yes.
Yeah, Kevin and Lee.
Oh, yeah. and John and Colin, yes. These people work night and day. They do. They really do. And I just want to say, we thank you for what you're doing, and we want to encourage you to keep it up. And whatever Sam and I can do to help out, as long as we can, we will certainly do that, because this neighborhood means a lot to us, and it means a lot to our children. We still have children coming along, and that's essentially what I want to say, is that it's important to encourage our young people. That's so important. Give them a little pat on the back and tell them when they're doing right, not just all the time when they're doing wrong. That's essentially what I want to say. Donna, have I talked too long? I'm sorry.
Not at all, not at all. I'm sure that everyone has enjoyed this as much as I have. And I want to thank you, Mrs. Hooper. Sharon Jefferson has here. Thank you, Mrs. Hooper and Dr. Whyte, for a great interview. Thank you all. Thank you. You're such a blessing. I'm sure that everybody who has been able to spend time with us today has just gained so much from having this opportunity to get to know you better and to come. Just the evidence of how people feel is due, see how many people are here who know you, who just want to be able to be with you, even if it's virtually, And in many cases, this is, you know, an opportunity that, you know, people would not have to, you know, to see you if it were not for this virtual opportunity. I want to thank Lee and Kevin also, Kay, because they've done so much for the Moreland community and bringing us together. And this is just a new opportunity for us to connect, to get to know each other better. And everybody who's on, keep in mind that we will be doing this the second Sunday of each month at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I would say that you know, here's some information. Oh, here's my telephone number and everything.
Can I say one thing?
Sure,
I wanted to give special thanks to Linda, all the way from Boston today.
Oh, wonderful.
Her other name is Lakshmi.
Lakshmi, thank you.
Yes.
Linda and Paula were classmates at Shaker.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Nice.
And
yes. And you know, and I also want to say that you know, of course, Mrs. Hooper, you and your husband have just some amazingly talented children. Just amazingly talented. We could have conversations with them, and you know, we'd have a full evening and just learn so much from you know, their stories of their lives. So so I want to thank you, Paula and Sam, for being on with us today, and say hello to your sister as well.
Thank you.
Our pleasure, absolutely.
Our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
thanks to everyone.
Yes.
I mean, you know, when we made the contact with everybody was in the last couple of days, you know, to have this number of people cooperate so beautifully. God, he's good. He's just so good.
Bill, Gwen, and Tina, you want to thank Miss Earline and her family, her wonderful family, for all that she's given us this evening and in the past. We're just thankful for her.
I wanted to say that I refer to Mrs. Hooper as her queenship, because that's what she represents to me.
Okay, so we've got Becca, of course, and we've also got Becca's mom, Mimi Margie Shade, who really actually wants to meet both of you. Becca's mom taught for 47 years, you know, and really wants to meet Earline and you. So,
okay, I've known Earline for a long time.
There she is. There she is.
I don't know how many years. Oh, probably 40 or 50 years or more.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Probably more. I've known her since the 50s.
He's always smiling, and his wife is the same way. They just smile all the time. I look at them and I have to smile. Thank you for those smiles.
Oh, you're welcome. You make us smile too.
And I just want to say thank you for a wonderful program.
Oh, bless you, dear. Thank you for coming. You were here for my birthday party.
I was indeed.
You sure were.
Yes.
Great.
And mark your calendar, second Sunday of each month at 6 o'clock, and hope to see everyone soon. And thank you again, Mrs. Hooper.
Thank you,
everybody.
thank you everyone that came.
Yes.
I'm just thrilled. I am just thrilled. Thank you. You've given me the inspiration to keep on trying to work.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I don't know. I don't think you're ever going to stop. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.